99 point. They just want to make as much as possible on it, right? So what are some creative ways that you can affect the seller's bottom line, get them more money, but not necessarily just go up in price, because then you're running into appraisal issues, or maybe they don't have the extra cash to bring. So what are some creative ways that y'all get your offers accepted?
Things I've done in the past that has worked has been like allowing extra days for possession. So like we
Mhm.
close on a certain day, but say, you can have a few extra days or a week, whatever the case may be. Um, then they're not scrambling trying to get, their stuff out of the house or figure out a place to do. That seems to work pretty well.
That's a good one. What else?
If not an investor, I try doing the letters, the impact letter. It's not allowed in certain places, but in New York, we do it, and I just got an offer accepted because of that this week.
Nice.
Is
So is
that
that something?
is that a love letter?
Yes, we call it impact letter.
Okay.
But I think it's the same thing.
It's,
Is everybody still able to do those or use those a lot? We've seen them go away a lot.
I think it depends on the listing agent, if the listing agent is willing to actually deliver the letter.
Some brokers are not allowing
Yeah.
Agents to pass a letter on because it puts the seller into a potential fair housing violation if they choose a family versus not. Like it starts to expose the seller into bias. They work, and that's why they work. And when it comes to fair housing, they're being looked at it as a liability for sellers.
Like
Yeah.
I said, I know some places they don't allow it, but they still allow it in my area.
Nice.
right. It's actually part of our listing agreement in Missouri. It's a checkbox actually on the standard form if the seller wants to actually allow them or not. So it's the seller's decision.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. It's neat how it's different in different places.
Yeah, if it is not an investor, it usually works. But in our area, it depends on the listing agent, if the listing agent is willing to actually deliver the letter or not.
That is
Well, you can include it as part of the contract, and then they have to deliver it.
Well, in New York, it's not part of the contract.
Right. And can you add it as an extra, like an additional form to the contract, like you do for your government loans or anything like that?
No. Over
No,
here,
some
to
people
the-
just attach it to the email
Yeah.
for the offer. It's not part of the contract. It's just something that people want submitted or have the sellers look at it.
Yeah, I have
Yeah.
listing agent decline it and say, I'm not showing this to my clients
Yeah.
because of X,
Yeah.
Y, and Z.
Yeah. What are some
So
other
what else?
what are some other creative ways you guys are using to have your offer stand out that are appealing to sellers?
That increases their bottom line without just grazing the price.
I always ask what, if the seller is an investor, or if they still live in the house, how long they've been in the house, like all of those things I believe are useful and helpful, because if it is a client who's been there for 33 years, they have a lot of shed to pick up and they might need a little extra time. But if it is an investor, we know that to them, the most important thing is timing and money. So
Yep.
asking those questions is important.
Yes, definitely. If you're not calling the listing agent before you submit an offer, you should be. And not just a text, hey, I'm sending an offer. Pick up the phone, like we were talking about last week. Pick up the phone, call the listing agent, and have a real conversation about the offer, about what the situation is. Just like Betsy said, what's important to your client, what's going on. Is it time or money? What are the big things for them? So if you're not doing that, please pick up the phone and start calling the listing agents before you submit the offer, so that way you can find out some more information from them.
My favorite question for the listing agent is, have your sellers given you permission to share all terms?
Oh, that's a good way to word that.
Because in our area, there's a checkbox on the listing agreement that allows the seller allows the agent to disclose other offers, disclose just the that there are other offers, and then disclose all terms of all offers. And we use that on the listing side. I'd encourage my sellers. I said, if you check this box, it actually will encourage people to possibly offer even more. Because if somebody really wants the home, if they find out what it's going to take to get the home, they may actually offer more than if they go blind. Because when people go in blind, they're like, well, what if I'm offering too much? And then I don't I know I could go to 300, but I only it's listed at 260. We could go to 300, but if I just offer 300, the next offer is only 275. I'm just throwing away 15,000. But if I can go, hey, we've got 4 offers right now. The highest offer is 287. What do you want to do? 287, waived inspections, appraisal gap waiver, yada, yada, yada. Then the client goes, oh, well, let's do all the same terms and 5,000 more. Cool.
We can't share all of it. Well, I guess if we have, there's not anything specifically in our agreement that says.
So then, I mean, talk to your brokers, but I would
Yeah.
say, ask your broker and say, if my seller gave me written permission to share terms of all other offers, am I able to do so? And that allows you to put yourself in a position to gain more for your seller. And then also same thing on the other side. And just
Yeah.
talk to the agent and say, have you asked them? Would you mind asking them and see if they give you permission? Because we want to make sure that you guys come out with everything that you're looking for. And we may be able to offer you something better than what your best offers are if we know a little bit more about them.
That's really awesome. Really awesome.
Yeah, it's the same in Missouri. There's 2 check boxes on the listing agreement that allows you to share the offers and then the terms of those offers.
One thing that I always look at with my buyers, because it's something that can be rolled into expenses, but things like the title policy, not asking for a home warranty, because in the grand scheme, that is a smaller expense, but it can make a difference to a seller when they see that you're not asking for yet another credit. All those little things, even though they're smaller, like a title policy, $1,200, a home warranty, $600. Yes, they add up, but I think when a seller sees that, oh, they're not asking for this, this, and this, it also puts a different mindset around it. Like yes, I'm getting more money, but they're not asking me for all this stuff. This makes it really easy on my side. And I've seen a lot of sellers say, well, let's go with that one, even if the numbers are almost the same as another, because buyers aren't asking for a ton, or they're saying, hey, we really want this house, we'll take on the responsibility for these things or take on the expense for these. And it's not a huge increase. Yesterday I was talking to a buyer and it was going to make about a $2,100 difference on their loan, and I think it was like $6 on their monthly payment. So it made very little difference to them, but it made all the difference in the world to the seller. And they're like, well, y'all aren't asking for this, we're going with that. So even those little things, they add up quickly and can make a really big impact. What else? What are some other fun ways, creative ways? Had somebody offer me a year of tacos once to me and the seller from the buyer if we took their offers. So what are some other ways, creative ways that y'all are getting y'all's buyer offers accepted?
I've had someone, a couple people do, you know what, I'm not even going to do an inspection. The house looks great. Throw that out there and see if that helps. Because then the people aren't worried about any issues. That people get picky, and they don't want to worry about that. It's not my favorite, but that's what some people do too, because they really want their house.
Yeah. In our market, we have an as-is addendum that has the 4 options of what an as-is can look like, right? Like, hey, we're going to do inspections, but we're not going to negotiate. We're going to do inspections and like, no matter what the findings are, we can't cancel. And then the third is like, we're not even going to do inspections.
We have that same thing in ours
Right.
too.
So for instance, if your buyer's not willing to waive inspections, one of the ways that you can make an inspection like an offer with an inspection more palatable to the seller is put a dollar amount cap on any requested repairs. To say like, hey, like my client's not willing to do like to waive inspections, but like we won't ask for anything more than $500 of like maintenance-y kind of things that are required in the inspection. So to give your seller peace of mind, anything over 500, like they're just gonna take as is or waive, if you guys would be willing to do that. Some sellers are like, yeah, you know what, that helps. So we're not like worried about a $5,000 repair.
That's awesome.
I've been more listing heavy this year than on the buyer side. And I've noticed like a lot of people that is what they were doing. They were waiving like their walkaway right from the inspections. I know I don't know what the contracts are like in other states, which obviously the people who are in Missouri know we have like the residential sales contract and then the special sales contract. I don't think any of the offers that we've accepted the entire year were written on just a regular sales contract. I think they were all on special sales contracts that we accepted. I definitely was not always priced, but because I mean, there was one we took $45,000 less than the top offer because there was no way that thing was going to appraise that for that much, and they didn't even waive their appraisal or even do any kind of appraisal like gap coverage. So all of the offers that we've accepted have either some form of gap coverage or they had completely waived their appraisal. I know that when I have written offers on the buyer side, even if my clients are not, even if my clients don't have I mean, like they have financing. If they are able to, I'll have them like fully underwritten before we even put in an offer. Very few of the offers that I've accepted this year have not had something where like there's like financing is extremely secure. But Matt knows that I went through a very long period of mutual releases. So I have just not wanted, I've just not wanted to get in this where we're having to mutually release stuff, and that was really a big concern too, because I was having people this is heavy in like the early 2023, like late 2022, where they were saying that we're not going to do any repairs, we're waiving our appraisal. Then they would rush get their appraisal done in the 5 days of the inspection period that they gave, and then they would just back out. So, and I had a couple things like that happen, but I have not really been seeing that happen now. I also, with the love letters, I'll even tell my clients I'm not even going to show them to them until after they until after they've reviewed all of the offers and made their choice, because I said I don't want to put you in a fair housing violation. And if my clients really want to write one, I always tell them, don't send pictures of your family, don't do anything that could cause the seller to get in a fair housing violation. Just put stuff about what you like about the house and keep it at that. And that seems, I did one, the people actually gave the lady 6 weeks of possession after closing. They're not able to take possession of the house until June 17th, and we closed early on in May. But we did have some stipulations, and we did have the seller like do a $5,000 deposit when in escrow, like it's held in escrow, just in case that there was any problems. They're actually not even charging her rent for that time. I told them they could charge her rent, but they said no, we just really want the house. And like 1 month's rent is not gonna bother us. And they just did the inspections for their information only. And we did ask them to cover occupancy just for the fact of how long that they were giving her possession. But in our area, most of the areas around here, there's like 108 or 80 municipalities in the St. Louis area. It's crazy. So all the different municipalities have different rules on like occupancy, but most people seem to be waiving the occupancy still. I hate it. I tell people a lot of times when I meet with them, the buyers, I hate telling them like what they have to do to win an offer. But if I don't tell them, I'm wasting their time and I'm wasting mine. So I hope that helps, especially on and I will tell you what you guys said on like calling the listing agent, absolutely calling the listing agent. But I had people that literally just hounded me like all weekend long. And because we said we were waiting through the weekend to look at offers. So I had agents who just like, I mean, they were just calling me like every 2 hours. You don't need to call the listing agent every 2 hours and see how things are going on. If they tell you that they're waiting through the weekend, just be patient with them and let the process, right? Like introduce yourself, make it known that you really want, you know, their clients are really interested in the property and they're very serious. Put your offer in early and hopefully like they're going to do what they say they're going to do. And yeah, follow up with them shortly before offers are due.
Nice.
Yeah.
There were
Yeah.
a couple of things. Oh, go ahead, Matt.
No. I was just don't when it comes to like concessions, closing costs, credits, etc. Some of the things is you could offer to pay some of the seller's closing costs as well. Timing, quick close or long close, finding out what the seller needs. Do they need a fast close or do they need a long close, or would they rather close sooner, have their proceeds and funds, and then just do a lease back and either do a lease back at below market rate or as a credit, as a free, right? Like you take on a payment or you take on the 30 days or the 45 days to give them a free lease back, like that there's value in that. So finding out what they want timing wise could make you stand out too.
And that always comes from just picking up the phone and having that conversation with the agent. Like that's so important.
Yeah.
A couple things that Betsy and Brooke both alluded to as well on your inspections, if your buyer isn't comfortable waiving that, which I think here we don't have that happen very often, but if you have a really good relationship with an inspector that you know can get in really quick, doing a much shorter option period can be really beneficial because that's a stressful time for sellers. Like, man, we've got to wait 10 days to decide if they're going to back out. Or if you've got a really good relationship with an inspector, know that you can get them out there in 24 hours, shrink that down to 3 days. And that takes a lot of the emotion off of the seller for them waiting and waiting and waiting. And then also having your buyers, like what Brooke said, having them all the way through underwriting, that also relationships also come in there with your lenders. If you have a lender that can get them all the way through the approval process pending them selecting a house, that's going to make them so much stronger than someone who has just barely started the process. And you can let the other agent know, like, hey, this isn't just your standard pre-approval. We've gone through the full process. There will be no issues. This is not pending approval on financing. We've got that done. And those are all things that they're not going to affect necessarily the bottom line to the seller, but it's going to take so much stress and anxiety off of them and make your offer a lot stronger.
I also want to add, like some of the agents that won the offers, they did little extra things. Like when we had houses, like I know one of the houses we had listed for 460 and we had multiple offers in the 490 kind of range. And I know that the agent that ended up getting it, she put together like this great email, like she meant like, you know, introduced like several different people who was really outlined like clearly her offer. I mean, she did give me a little blurb about the people, which I really try to ignore because I don't want to get emotionally involved. And like, you know, in the, you know, I mean, because she was telling me they're trying to have a baby and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, I don't want to hear it because I don't want that to like sway my judgment with my clients. But I mean, I could tell she was a fantastic person to work with just because of how she laid out and how it's not that I didn't care who her transaction coordinator was, but it was just nice that I could see she was a great person to work with. So
That's another, Brooke mentions that that's something that I do when I never work with that listing agent. In the email, I let them know that if they need to have references from me and how I get to the closing table, I can also provide that. That's another thing when I never work with that agent that I submit on my email.
That's really good. Definitely put that stuff out there. Send a good email. Don't just send an email that says, "Hey, here's the offer." Outline the high points of what is in the offer. Introduce yourself, your team, all of that. Because there have definitely been times on the sell side when my clients, they have offers that are really, really close together and doesn't really make a difference. And they're like, okay, who's going to be easier to work with? Who's going to get this thing closed? That can make a big difference. Y'all, relationships, you've heard me say a million times that our entire business is about relationships, not just with our clients, but with other agents. It's so important to have good relationships with them. And like she said, if you don't know them, introduce yourself, put that out there and let them see who you are up front. Because I guarantee you, if you have 10 offers and yours is one of them, if you're the one doing that, nobody else is. No one else is doing all that. They're just saying, hey, here's my offer. Let me know if you have any questions. Stand out.
I also have the lender call the agent to talk with the agent through the loan and stuff like that. I know that's helped a little bit to calm the agent through
It's really good.
Especially when the person has like a random lender that you've never even heard of. It's really, really like more reassuring when the lender calls, because I've had that just this year. Like, I'm like, I have no idea who this weird CB something company is.
As a listing agent, I call them when I don't know them. I want to see how proactive the lender is, how quick they respond, how soon they get back to you, because that makes a difference, especially if the client might be inclined to take that offer because of the numbers and we don't know the lender. Definitely is good to do a phone call there. If they
Yeah,
don't-
I've had lenders reach out and vouch for the qualification of their client, and then also saying, hey, like if we're close, let us know, because we've got some things that we can still do. Right? Like they're well qualified, they've got a lot of proceeds, and like if we're real close, we can put something together to make it work. I said, cool, that's great to know.
And that all comes from relationships too, because
Oh.
that agent had a good relationship with the buyer.
Anyone else? Any other? I mean, there's always the one-off stories. There's the funny stories. I had a listing where the buyers came in and the lady, one of the Mrs. Buyer, was the head of marketing for Sporting KC, which is the professional soccer team here, and said, with an acceptable offer, we're going to give you the presidential suite at any game of your choosing, fully catered, for like 10 people. It's an off-market opportunity. It's the actual president's suite, right? Which is like, I think Patrick Mahomes, he's one of the owners of Sporting KC. So, and they're like, you and your agents can go. And I'm like, this is a great offer. You guys should absolutely consider this offer. This is a really good offer.
I think just the biggest thing is to communicate both with the buyer and the seller's agent as to what can the buyer offer and what can, what's important to the seller, so that you have that open communication, so how to negotiate things to make that the best offer.
Because it's not always about the amount. It is in many cases, and of course they all want to get the max amount of money, but it's not always just the amount.
Yeah.
Any other final thoughts? The one tip that I definitely would recommend and suggest is whatever you do have in your toolbox to help a buyer win, have that documented somewhere and have a checklist and have something that you can show someone. that you can articulate from top to bottom, starting from offer all the way through concessions, cleanliness, inspections, no non-inspections, possession, credits, etc. Like, what are the 9 things or the 14 things that you have control over on the offer side that then the buyer gets to choose? Say, here's the menu of all the things. Like, if we throw everything at it, we can do this, we could do this, we could do this, we could do this, we could do this. Are you comfortable with that? And some of them will go, yes, all of it, but that. Like, okay, cool. If we take this off, then maybe we can do this and this to make it even better without waiving your appraisal, or because you don't have an extra $20,000 to cover a gap, like for cash or what. Like, there's like showing people, because here's the thing: if you're out there and everyone's like, well, what should we offer? And you're like, I think this is going to take it. This, let's do this. And then it doesn't happen. First time they're like, the market's really tough. Second time, the market's really tough. And then somebody in their world is like, well, are you guys doing this? Are you guys doing this? Are you doing this? And they're like, well, my agent never even suggested that. Because you're like, I don't think they would do it. Show them everything all the time. They get to pick what they're comfortable with. Fight like hell for it. And then if they don't win, it's whose fault is it? It's not our fault. We're working on this together. It's the market's fault. It's the other side's fault. Right? So.
And incorporate that into have that conversation in your buyer's consult, especially going forward over these next few months. What a huge value that you're adding to a buyer, saying, hey, here's all the ways that I can fight for you and negotiate. And things that they're not even going to think about if they were wanting to go on their own. That's big.
Yeah. Betsy, do you have a trombone player in your world?
That's my dog who's snoring. Sorry.
I was like, someone's practicing for summer band. All right, guys. Well, listen, it's time. If you've got any questions, additional questions on this, and you wanted to maybe get like a little bit more of a concrete list, etc., maybe we could set something we could put together. I have something that I'm going to share next week that is coming out of our organization. So the organization that we're part of is one of the most productive organizations in the country, and in our private Facebook group, they've been sharing some really, really powerful buyer stuff when it comes to this the new NAR changes here in August. So we're going to share a little bit of that with what we can next week. So stay tuned for that.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.